Hopefully I'm in focus. I can't actually tell if this is blurry or if that's just my freckles. We'll find out. Okay, so good morning everyone. I thought I would go over crypto grid bot trading and all of the research that I did kind of before getting started. These include details like exactly what is a grid bot, how much money you can reasonably make with grid bot trading, what platforms to use, the strategies, how much it costs, if it's legal, and then of course some terminology to know when getting started. Now, I am going to mention a few products today, but I just wanted to let you know that this is not sponsored and these are all products that I have used and paid for myself. So with that, let's grab a beverage and get into it. Kind of first of all, what are grid bots? Grid bots or grid trading bots are automations that help you execute a grid trading strategy. And essentially what that means is you set up this little automation or a bot to sell a particular cryptocurrency every time that currency's value goes up or down. Now, unlike a limit order, which you see in crypto, but also in the traditional stock market, a bot will make dozens, sometimes hundreds of trades within a day as that value kind of goes up and down. Quick change up so I can share my screen and talk to you for this next part. So for how grid bots actually work and how grid trading strategy works, it's actually pretty simple. And to best illustrate it, I'm gonna show you a real example on Bitscap. So there are essentially four components to a grid trading bot, and that is the cryptocurrency pair, the range of the grid, how many levels or how many grids within that range, and the amount of capital that you want to invest. From there, the grid bot strategy is pretty simple, and you'll see that when I bring it up. Okay, so here we are on Bitscap. And this is what the interface looks like. We have our chart up here with all of the tools, and then all of the active grid bots are listed down here. So the first component I was talking about was the cryptocurrency pair. And I'm gonna talk later about how to select a cryptocurrency pair, but for the purposes of getting through this explanation, I'm just gonna go ahead and show you Avalanche versus USDT or AVAX versus USDT. This is what the chart looks like. And this coin was started back in December. So we have that first component, we have the cryptocurrency pair. The next thing we have to do is set the grid range. So if we look at right before this bot was started, this is what AVAX versus USDT was doing. So to set the grid, we want to select a range that coin is kind of moving in. So down here at the bottom, we have it at 71.8, and then the upper limit is 128.22. So as you can see, it did go out of range a little bit here, but for the most part, it is moving in between those limits for a particular period of time. Obviously, if we go further back, that might not be true. As you can see, yeah, it's doing all sorts of things. Once we have the range set, we need to set the levels within that range that create the grid. And how many levels you set is dependent on a couple of factors, one of which is how much capital you have, and then the other is how much volatility you have within that range. So this particular grid bot has 31 levels, I believe. Yes, 31 between the 127 and 71. So there are 31 grids in this grid bot. So we have those 31 levels. Then the last component is how much capital you want to allocate to this particular grid bot. So this bot has the equivalent of $659 allocated to it right now. So that means that $659 will be distributed across those 31 levels in the grid. Now, if we zoom in and take a closer look, once this grid bot was turned on, you can see every time the cryptocurrency value passed one of these lines, past one of the lines in the grid, it would buy or sell depending on whether it was going up or down. So each of the green circles is a buy and each of the red is a sell. So you can see every time it crosses that line, there's one at the next line, there's one down here, one up here, one hiding right there. But right here, the grid bot went out of range. It went below 170, 1.63. And at that point, the grid bot will stop trading. So this means, it doesn't mean you've lost any money, it just means you're not making any money, and it's going to hang out there until we get back in range, which happened briefly right here and then more sustained over here. Oh, there we are. So just to illustrate how the levels work and the trades work, the last couple of hours, the value of AVAX to USDT has just kind of been going a little bit back and forth between these two grid levels, and as such there hasn't been any trades. So even though there is some volatility here, we're not seeing any trades because it's not moving enough. And depending on how long this goes for, or what this swing actually is, I mean it's a couple percentage, a couple percentage points. You might want to have a more dense grid and add more levels in here so that you can capture this volatility as well. At this point, for this particular example, I wouldn't say it's worth it, but it is something that you'd want to consider when you're checking up on your grid bots. This will vary platform to platform, but on Bitscap, you can also pull up the details of a particular bot. So this is the same AVAX versus USDT bot that I had the chart going for, and you can see all of your metrics here, including daily profit. So again, this is like money that is in your pocket. It is not money that is tied up in the grid bot, and it's not like earth-shattering amounts. We're talking like a couple dollars every day, but when you have 15 or 16 grid bots going and you do this over several months, all of that change adds up. And you can see like this one has added up to a profit of $125. This is bot profit. And then if we look here, they have another metric for your initial funds. So this is just telling you that if you were to close the bot today and the capital that you have invested in AVAX or USTD is released, that you will actually lose money because the value of USDT has gone down since you first invested. So if you're being like really smart and cautious with your money and you want to close this bot, you might want to wait until this is positive again, so you're not losing any money on that initial kind of like total investment as well. It also has some other metrics. It's been trading for 2 months and 19 days. And it has done 622 transactions, which is great that, you didn't have to do any of those. It just did them automatically. And then if you want to go and look at each one, it details all of them here and when they happened and for how much. Lots and lots of data. You can also export this if you'd want to, and you can switch it to show either currency. So if you were to close the bot when it is in AVAX, you would actually get a profit. So you wouldn't want to close it when it was all invested in USDT because you would lose money if you closed. So yeah, this is really handy. I think it's super user-friendly, especially for beginners. Okay, so let's get back to GridBot trading strategy. One final thing while I have Bitscap pulled up here that I wanted to talk about is the importance of properly researching and setting the range, because that really can determine if your bot is successful or not in turning a profit. So if we look at this example here with AVAX, the grid bot has moved across almost the entire range, which is what we want to see. If you set a range that is too broad or a range that is too slim, your grid bot will not use all of the capital that it has been allocated, or if you make it too thin, the grid bot will go out of range and isn't making any trades, so it's also not using capital. So you want to make sure that you're selecting a range where it's highly probable that that currency is going to cross all of your grids, either going up or down. And obviously, no one is psychic. We don't have Nostradamus here helping us out. You can't know the future for sure, but you just want to at least do some due diligence and research to make sure that the grid you're setting up actually makes sense. And a lot of people, when they're first starting out who aren't so sure, might make a grid really broad, and then you're just leaving money on the table. You have capital that is allocated to these grid bots that's just sitting there not doing anything. Similarly, if the grid bot, if the range is too slim, or maybe it's too high up or too far down and your grid bot goes out of range, then you're kind of stuck waiting until it goes back in range to do something with it. So I just wanted to add that in here because I noticed when I was researching that there was not a lot of attention paid to this range setting step. So I just wanted to call it out for you because I think it is really important and greatly increases your success rate if you understand the importance of that one metric in there. As you can imagine listening to this, grid strategies do not work in all markets. You can't just like spray and pray, put grid bots everywhere and then hope that it will turn out. Hope is not a strategy. So if we look at the kind of four main types of markets, we have an uptrend, a downtrend, a hyperbolic chart, and then this kind of sideways consolidation. For grid strategy, you're going to want to look for charts that look like number 4. These are charts that are going sideways or consolidating. This means that the currency value is just kind of ping-ponging back and forth in between a certain range. These kind of markets are considered generally not winners if you wanted to hodl a coin because it's not going to go up or down enough to really be worth your time. But they are great candidates for grid bots. If we look at the other charts, chart number 1, you could just do a limit order for that. You don't really need to deploy a grid bot. For chart number 2, where you see something trending down, you kind of want to avoid that altogether. There are ways to make money in these type of markets, but that is not going to be the focus of this video. So for the purposes of this, we can ignore markets that look like chart number 2. Chart number 3 is tricky because it could be a good candidate for a grid bot, but it's probably too early if it's that volatile. And sometimes you end up working with this type of chart even though you didn't need to. And what happens is you can essentially close it down and just, eat the loss, or you can try to put more capital into it and add more grids. But that also runs the risk that you're just going to end up losing more money. So really what you want to do ideally, especially if you're starting out, is do your research and look for charts that look like chart number 4. Now, because I know if you're watching this video, you may have already done this, but I know a lot of people, their first step is to go and Google grid bot trading strategies. And one of the first things that comes up is Dan Hollings's The Plan. Did I say that right? Dan Hollings and The Plan. And that is his grid bot strategy trading course. I did try to enroll in this when I saw it, but it must have been bad timing or something because they literally would not take my money. I don't know what happened, but I couldn't get into the program. So if someone out there watching has done this program, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please let me know in the comments down below. And also let me know if there's a way to get into this program. Now, when I talk to people who are new to crypto about grid bots, one of their first questions is always, are they legal? And as of right now in the United States, yes, they are legal. And this is surprising to a lot of people because in the traditional stock market world, automated grid trading or flash trading is essentially illegal. The major exchanges don't allow it because a couple of years ago, the SEC tried to pass a law that would make it illegal. And what the exchanges realized is it's basically just easier for them if they self-regulate and don't allow it on their platforms. And I mention this because regulations around crypto are always changing. So if you see anything out there about regulations and grid bots, be sure to pay attention because you want to keep your assets safe and make sure that you're always going to have access to them. The second most common question I get is, are grid bots passive income? And my short answer to this is no. I do not consider grid bots passive income, and here is why. It's for sure less work than a 9-to-5, but it's not quite as, set and forget as investing in the S&P 500 index fund. I personally check my grid bots every day. I tweak them once a week, and I will close down and open up new bots once a month. And while that is certainly not a lot of work, it isn't entirely passive either. I found that anyone who is out there kind of promoting grid bots as passive income is also usually trying to sell you something. So not that that's a bad thing. I'm sure at least some of them are amazing products, but just be aware that it is not a truly passive income source. But it is easier than a 9-to-5. Okay, the next common question is, how much can you realistically make grid bot trading? And while there are people out there who are going to tell you it's a get rich quick kind of setup and you can become a millionaire overnight, My research has shown that this is generally not true. I'm sure there are outliers out there, and I would love to be proved wrong. I would love there to be crypto millionaires popping up overnight from grid bot trading, but I have not seen that happen. That being said, I don't have any great third-party data that is analyzing grid bot performance. Everything that I'm talking about here is based on my personal experience and then research on other people's self-report data. That being said, average grid bot performance for a grid bot that is doing well, I saw was turning about 10% in profit, and a really good one was turning 15%. So if that means if you invested $1,000 in a grid bot, it will make you $100 to $150 a week if you have set up one that is doing well, if you have deployed a strategy that is working for you. And keep in mind, that is cash that is in your hand. That is not capital that is locked up in the investment. Related to how much money you make, I did also find that you need about $3,000 to invest across your grids to actually make more profit than what you would just hodling a coin or two. You can, of course, get started for less, but your profits just might not be as good as if you had just hodled that coin, but there is still value in learning how to set up a grid bot and figuring out a grid bot strategy that works for you, so that when you do have extra capital to deploy, you are ready to go. I did want to throw in a quick terminology check here, because when you are out there researching grid bots and looking at other grid bot traders, you're going to see metrics around realized and unrealized gains. So I wanted to go over really quickly what that means in the grid bot trading world. So on Pionex and 3 commas, you're going to see metrics for realized and unrealized gains. On Bitsgap, it is sum total profit and loss, or sum total P&L, and sum bot profit. I'll share my screen because this will get confusing if you can't see what I'm seeing. Unrealized gains, or total P&L, is telling you how much your crypto has increased or decreased in value compared to when you bought it. Some days it will be positive, some days it will be negative. That doesn't mean that you are gaining or losing anything, because the investment is still in progress. So as a rule of thumb, unrealized equals in progress. Realized gains, or sum bot profit, or your grid bot profit, is what your grid bot has actually made or lost by executing all of those orders. And this is money that is in your pocket, ideally in your pocket, unless it's lost money. Now, when you close a bot, the crypto that you are using for that investment is released, and that unrealized number is added to your realized number. So like I said before, when researching grid bot traders, make sure you're paying attention to what metric they're talking about and whether it's realized or unrealized profit, because it's really easy for people to kind of bounce back and forth between them when one looks bad, and then they're like, okay, well, we'll just pay attention to this other metric, but you can't look at one without looking at the other. Moving on, I've already mentioned some of the platforms, and there are a ton out there, but the major ones I suggest looking at, especially if you're just starting out, are Bitsgap, Pionex, and 3 commas. I think Bitsgap is great for beginners. They have a practice mode where you can trade with basically fake money, but you would see how your bot would actually have performed had that money been real. They do some free bots for people just starting out, which is awesome, and they also have pretty good AI recommendations. I have seen people do really well based on the Bitsgap recommended list. Other than Bitsgap, I'm also on Pionex, and it's a good platform for kind of intermediate traders. It doesn't have as many of the hand-holding features as Bitsgap, but you can release your profits as you go. It literally just has a button for it. It's great. And then finally, 3 commas is also highly recommended, but it is very difficult to set up quickly if you are in the United States, because their main integration is with Binance. If you are outside the United States, definitely research 3 commas and see if it's a good fit for you. I've heard lots of positive reviews about it. That is all for this video. Thank you for watching all the way through. If you found this useful, please let me know and consider subscribing. You can always change your mind later. Let me know what else you want to know about grid bots in the comments. I would love to make more of these videos. And if you're already on one of these platforms, which one are you using and do you like it? I would love to hear from people, especially that are on the 3 commas platform, because it's not one that I could try out for myself. But yeah, that is all for this week, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye.